Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give a couple minutes for me to try to let people in from the waiting room and get the slides running. Let's see. Oh. Good morning or good afternoon. I think this is the one thing that I do learn, Nancy, from when I'm letting people in and trying to do the introductions, that it's not always the smoothest.
Well, we have to wait a few minutes.
Yeah.
It'll take a while to get everybody in.
Yeah. So we'll be starting. Let's give it maybe another minute, and we can go ahead and just kind of get started. And then Nancy, then I can turn it over to you, and then just watch the waiting room. So let's see.
You'll talk about the chat, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We have a couple. I'm letting a couple people in right now. Let's see. Admit all. Oh no, Terry. Okay. See your message. I'm glad you can join us. Good. Well, I'm gonna just get started, and we'll keep letting folks in as they join. Welcome and thank you for joining us for Generations United's Shared Site Learning Network. If everyone can just take a second to make sure that the name on the Zoom is what you wanted to, what you want to be called, and then to share in chat who you are, what organization you're with, and where you're located, so we can sort of just have some understanding of where everyone is coming from. I wanted to thank the Eisner Foundation for their continued support of this Shared Site Learning Network. We're really excited for this continuation of the grant support and to see how we can continue to grow. The goal of this group is to share the latest information and resources from the field, facilitate peer learning, grow the community of shared sites, to really expand the number of shared sites around the country and around the world. This is often an international group, so we're excited for those connections as well. In addition to these meetings, we're going to be launching a quarterly newsletter on intergenerational shared sites. So members of this network or people who've attended a webinar will automatically receive it. But that'll be sort of, Nancy's been developing that for us to really look around some program examples, some research findings, some resources, information that will just sort of help round out the networking as well as some of the learning that we're trying to accomplish. I'm going to be sharing, once I'm done talking and letting everybody in, I'm going to be sharing some links about a couple things I'm about to talk about. I'll drop those in chat as well, but want to make sure everyone has saved the dates for Generations United's our intergenerational global conference that's happening this summer, July 26th to 28th. We hold this event every other year, so this will be the first time back in person since 2019, and then the first time back in DC and Washington DC in over 10 years. The interest in the conference has been phenomenal. We've had a record-breaking number of proposals submitted, and if you did submit a proposal, hopefully either today or tomorrow you'll be hearing from our conference team about your proposals. But the educational sessions are really just going to be outstanding, and we're really excited to be able to connect in person again. And we will be holding a Shared Site Learning Network meeting for those people that are at the conference or are interested in shared sites during the conference as a peer group there. So I'll put the link about more information around the conference in chat as soon as I turn it over to Nancy. Also wanted to let you know that Global Intergenerational Week is coming up. Not sure if you've seen anything about it or heard about it. That's later this month, April 24th through the 30th. It's organized by Generations working together in Scotland, and Generations United and the Eisner Foundation are the country leads for the US. So we've been trying to collect information and share information about some of those activities. I'll drop those chats also for for more information about Global Intergenerational Week, and then how you can sign up to be a supporter. And then we'll share with anyone who signs up with a supporter some of the resources that are coming out for that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, and then I will put some of those chats and links or some links in chat as just mentioned.
Thanks, Sherry. Hold on, let me unmute myself. Oh, now can you hear me? Yes, you hear me, right? Okay. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all. And I imagine as we go through the next 5 or 10 minutes, we'll get some more people. I'm really delighted today to have presenters here who are going to talk about shared sites in kind of a different way. I think many of our seminars, our workshops have focused on very young children and older adults in shared sites. And today we're going to look at a mix, and we're going to look at 2 very interesting shared site examples, one in Queens, New York, and one in Pittsburgh, that look at both housing and a community center that's being transformed into a real intergenerational space. They're both works in progress. So they're not at the end, they're not at the beginning, they're both kind of in the middle. And I think they're going to share with us some of their challenges, some of the successful strategies, some of the reasons why they're doing this. And I think it'll be a really, really exciting session. We're going to they'll present for like about 15, 20 minutes, then we'll have time, about 10 minutes or so afterwards for questions. So write down your questions for each one, and then we'll go to the second group, and then we'll have a general discussion. Okay. So we're going to start with Sunnyside Community Center. And I want to thank Terry, who's here, Terry Kalber, who's Director of Institute for Engaged Aging at United Neighborhood Houses. And they have a Eisner grant that is supporting some of this intergenerational work at Sunnyside. And Terry gave me Curly and Donald's names, and I've been really fortunate to be able to learn much more about Sunnyside and to meet them. So let me just tell you really quickly, Curly is the director of the Older Adult Center at Sunnyside in Queens, New York. She's had 15 years of expertise in gerontological social work, and she has a licensed master's in social work. And she evidently has been the driving force for intergenerational program planning at Sunnyside since about 2017. And Donald, her partner in crime, is Deputy Director of High School Programs at Sunnyside. He has a master's in urban affairs, and he also has 15 years experience in youth development. And he and Curly have been partners in this. And I think that's part of the key to their success, that they have worked side by side to figure out how to make this space a really welcoming space for all ages. So Sherry is going to move the slides and welcome Donald and Curly, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thanks again, GU, for allowing us to provide this presentation. We're also joined by our executive director, who's in the crowd, Judy Zangwell, and Siobhan, who is the AED of adult services, here at Sunnyside Community Services. So thank you for being present, and we appreciate all your support. Thank you again to UNH and Eisner for going and providing us the support funding wise, and also just the guidance to continue doing the good work that we do here. So for the next slide, just very briefly, I'm just going to go over who we are. SCS, Sunnyside Community Services, is a nonprofit that provides diverse programs to support struggling families and individuals of all ethnic groups and income levels in Queens since 1974. Our services range from our universal pre-K program to our college readiness and also career exploration programs that we have here as well. Home care. We also have a Beacon program that provides services from all ages, and also a Cornerstone Community Center that is located in a NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority facility here in Woodside, New York. We also have an older adult center and provide other supportive services for at-risk older adults and their caregivers. Next slide.
So thank you again for inviting us. Just to explain a little bit about our organization and our goals as it relates to intergenerational programming. We strive to facilitate and promote intergenerational connections and that understanding that comes between the older adults and the youth. And we do that through a range of different activities and awareness. And of course, how we've always done some sort of intergenerational programming, but really it was more focused and targeted once we have the support of UNH, which is the United Neighborhood Houses of New York, through Terry, through a program called the Older Adult Strengthening Communities. And through that, we've been gaining more and more momentum as it comes to connecting, making these connections here in our space. And it is a shared space, so we are sharing the space, and we recognize that importance and the contributions that older adults make in the community as well as youth. And so with that, we really try to create this nurturing environment that really encourages that exchange of idea, the experience, and that sharing of knowledge with all the participants. Next.
Mhm. Thank you, Curly. And as we continue to do this work, our values have continued to grow and evolve from time to time. From when we started this work back, I would say 2016, Curly, right? Around that time, I would say. So now we've been expanding upon our values, and our values are listed as followed. Community members of all ages are fully integrated in the broader community and are connected, are seen as important and valued resources for the greater good, addressing community issues in ways that strengthen civic and community life, are recognized and respected for their skills, knowledge, experience, and interest, and have numerous opportunities to work together to contribute to their communities in ways that are meaningful and impactful. Next slide.
So you may ask, what is it that makes our work unique? And in really talking about it and really trying to address this question, it was really looking at where we are located. So perhaps if you're not familiar with where Queens is probably one of the most diverse counties in all of the United States, where we have more than significant ethnic groups: Hispanic, Asians, African Americans, and the diversity is reflected in our center, in our organization, and throughout all our programs. Some things that really make this more of the positive that we have here is being able to connect, having that cross-cultural connection and being able to gain those knowledges. So on the one hand, it does provide the chance for the people from the different cultural programs to connect and understand and gain empathy, as well as reduce ageism. But then we are also able to then, with those differences, actually create a sense of community and social cohesion. And doing it intergenerationally just creates a better environment where then it goes out to the rest of the community. Some of the ways that we have seen best to approach this is really having that culturally sensitive, responsive approach, and just being sensitive to those participants' needs, the backgrounds, being able to offer language, being able to provide services in the language that is most common. Here in our center, it really is Spanish. So it's really being able to provide bilingual programming so that when there is an older adult that can't understand, or then make those connections with the youth that are able to communicate with the older adults, and vice versa. It's just making sure that they are able to connect, because that interaction is the most important, and especially in shared side. Next.
So just wanted to talk about the space itself and how we're structured here, and how that kind of speaks to the work that we do. Here at Sunnyside Community Services, we have an older adult center that offers a variety of health and wellness programming, social activities like bingo, that I hear all the time. It's super popular, and educational opportunities. One we implemented through our intergenerational programming was digital literacy, which was how to understand technology, and having students come in to support the older adults there as well. And then also adult day services. With that, we previously had in the space a successful middle school program that successfully integrated into actually leading this intergenerational work that we had here at Sunnyside Community Services. They were pretty much our pilot group that we had here. We also currently offer a universal pre-kindergarten program that's located on the 3rd floor of our building. If you can picture in your mind, our 1st floor is the adult center, and our 3rd floor is where the UPK program in. So the little ones would just come down, and we're hoping in the future we'll build programming where we can bring back the reading components, where staff members would go up and read to the young ones as an intergenerational component. So that's what we're looking forward to. We also have a variety of youth service program for over 2,500 youth, and that we serve annually throughout Western Queens and also the Woodside neighborhood. So we are looking to incorporate those campuses into our intergenerational work as well. So for example, we would have those students walk over from our local public schools that we have like after school programs in, and they will come over to do some programming with the older adults. We also have a ESOL program for non-English speakers, and we help them improve their English skills, and we're also looking to collaborate with that group as well. And I think it is to have more conversations with the young ones and help build their English and practice their English. So we're looking at that as an opportunity as well. And then, within the organization, we have our home care services, support for family and caregivers, and social adult day programming that we provide for cognitive support and physical impairments, for individual physical impairments as well. So we just are looking to find ways into incorporating the space that's being utilized, but also utilizing that space for intergenerational work. Next slide.
So, and speaking about sharing shared spaces, really from the beginning, what we did was actually utilize the Older Adult Center program along with the middle school program that was situated in the same building, and then brought them together to create those intergenerational interactions. As Donald said, we are expanding this to, again, reincorporate post-pandemic pre-kindergarten and the English as a second language program here. How the ESOL program would work is really connecting with the younger adults that are engaged in this program to come down and do immersive conversations. And so that's one of the plans, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But before you can do all of that, I think why we're here sharing our experiences here is because, the things that we learned along the way is that we really need to establish those clear expectations from all parties involved and provide that guidance that needs to happen. Like, how is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? And who's responsible for what? I had mentioned before that all of this was like really spearheaded through the Older Adult Strengthening Program offered by UNH. And it was really, we introduced this self-guided program with the older adults taking the lead, aimed at enhancing the experience here at the Older Adult Center. However, that transitioned quickly, and it really expanded into what we call a co-led opportunity, where at the time we were calling it I teach you, you teach me. And so each group took turns in teaching something that they wanted to learn, either learn together or some experience that they had. I think that in looking at shared spaces, you really need to look at like the environment that you're in. And that means like you need to create a very safe, a very neutral space. And it really, at that point, then it creates that environment where they feel safe to share those experiences and really like be able to share whatever they may want to talk about. And the other important thing that we do want to highlight is that each group, whatever age group it may be, they have to feel equally valued and respected. And it's something that we've been learning along the way, that's, you know, you give them that value, you give them that, that respect, and then they just come together. Next slide.
Thank you, Curly. And talking about just keeping respect for all groups, we found that there were necessary steps that we needed to take to establish that. And I'm gonna bring up UNH and the support that they're providing us in the trainings that we went to and identifying these areas to best support our work. One aspect was establishing key personnel and staff members. And by identifying key staff members to support these interactions and optimize the operations that we need and the support that we needed to actually have better chances to succeed with this work, or better chances to implement this work, was a key aspect. And as Curly mentioned already, is creating that secure and safe environment, which was very critical to ensure that both the youth, especially middle schoolers who we started with, knew that they were welcomed, and also were prepped to welcome others as well. And you know, that wasn't easy. But we've gained skills along the way, and we made sure that with the third point, we are being proactive in scheduling meetings and preparing for successful engagement, sitting down with key staff members, sitting down with both parties, the older adults and the youth, to talk about the endeavor and the work that they're about to partake in, and making sure it's clear that not only they're going to be heard, but also to have that level of respect, and also be ready to contribute, be ready to be a participant in this. And I found that has helped us succeed in many ways, but this is not only the steps that we took, we're still taking these steps, and we're still engaging with this to best succeed in our work. Next slide.
And of course, along the way, there are challenges all the time. And you know, and it's really like looking at what those challenges are, and then how do we move forward, and how do we respond to those challenges. I already mentioned, like here particularly, it's being multicultural, multi-language, and so it's really preparing, like Donald said, and thank you, Donald, for mentioning it. We really have to prepare in advance for when we have programming, because we have to take into account those special needs that may be there. One of the challenges that we have, and people often think about, oh, well, the older adults are always at the center. That's not the case. And so they're really, you know, it's really being able to, the scheduling portion of it. You know, the older adults are not always available. And it's really like making sure that those older adults that are engaged in this type of programming understand the commitment that needs to go in the planning and the being present and the engaging other participants to come in, their peers. But then we also have the challenging of scheduling, where it has to go along with the schools and the availability of the students, the after school programs, when are they out of school, when is their vacation, the spring break that's coming up next week, and how do we do that, and what do we do at that point? It's really like asking older adults to participate more in less of a service aspect and more involved and more connected into the programming. And that takes a little bit of, like Donald said, we have to meet with participants ahead of time and really, and I gained the knowledge of youth programming through Donald, and I believe Donald has learned some of the older adult programming through through what we've been doing here together. And it really, in terms of like one of the great things that our organization learned is how we were able to work together instead of being in, as everyone speaks of, the silos and being separated and not being connected. So we found that but in doing that, the challenges that came about is like, scheduling, strengthening the staff, because the staff needs to understand what is going on and how is this going to happen. But in addition to that is providing them those resources that they need to have in order to understand, like, how is it going to happen? How is it going to meet New York City Department for the Aging guidelines? How is it going to meet New York City Department of Education guidelines and everything in between? And also, we had a pandemic along the way, and how do we respond to that, and how do we best meet those needs? And as always, it's ensuring that space that's safe. And by we mean safe, it means, it does have to be a safe environment, and it does have to be a protected environment. It depends on what age group you're working with, and also how are they going to interact? Because that's another part of the safety. It's what is that interaction? And really, it's like creating those one of the challenges is that it has to go forward. It's not just because Donald and I are here, it has to carry on. And so that's one of the challenges that does exist. And that's why I think why we need to gain more of staff and training and support. Thank you. Donald?
Thank you, Curly. So solutions to building program opportunities. And as we experience this work, we obviously can face challenges, but we got to be solution oriented. We got to come together, sit down, and look at ways in which we can support this work, sustain this work, implement this work, and develop new ideas for integration. And what we thought about was collaborate with other CBLs. There's other organizations that are doing this work who may have stumbled upon an issue and found a solution for it, or may have not maybe an exact carbon copy of our issue, but similarities between them. Maybe we can help someone else. Maybe it's not all about us and our problems. It's helping somebody else with theirs. So being part of a cohort, a collective group of organizations or individuals who also value this work is important. And then identify and utilize opportunities for intergenerational activities during school break and holidays. We had to become very creative in saying that, well, the older adults are always here, as Curly said, let me stop. But the older adults are around, right? We have opportunity to reach to them, they're adults, but students aren't, right? And it takes a lot for us to find ways and to incorporate students. They got to get their parents involved. You got to inspire them to want to be a part of it. And what is the best way when a high school student who comes out of school 3-4 o'clock, now you're asking them to do another activity? Some of them are like, no, I'm not doing it. But if we look at creative ways in which we can sit down with them and say, hey, look, your spring break is coming up. You're not going to school. Come and have fun with us. Come and do a fun and engaging activity with us. You see that the numbers rise, right? So looking at those breaks and holidays are times in which we can really go deep into doing intergenerational work. And we find great success with that.
Please call extension 477.
Is that you, Donald?
And then
Sorry about that.
All right. And then we wanted to.
Oh, we only have a few more minutes, so.
Oh, sorry, no problem. I'm going to go through it. So
Okay.
Additionally, we wanted to just continue to improve upon our elevator pitch to communicate with staff and other individuals who are interested in this work. Our elevator pitch, has evolved over time. It went from, this is what the work is to this is what the work is, and this is how we actually get it done. Be part of it. That's kind of forceful, but yes, that's how we've been able to evolve. And then finally, develop clear and easy to understand system for implementing intergenerational work. There's common language between we find with other CBOs or other staff members who do similar work. And if we use the model, which we express as co-led, co-educational model, servant model, they can pick up on that and understand exactly what the work means. Next slide. Really got to breeze through this.
Thanks, Donald. And just briefly to touch about how we build those connections, and it really is, as you can see, it's creating those shared activities. One of the things I always say is that these activities have to build joy, not build joy, they create joy, and when you have that, then that's when they just start the momentum of continuing to happen. We need to encourage mentoring and learning on both groups. It's not just one, it's not just the older adults mentoring and teaching, it's vice versa. The youth have a lot to share and to teach, and so giving each group an opportunity to do that, creating that inclusivity and respect. As I said, through this program, one of the goals is also to reduce ageism in our community, and doing it here in this way is one of the ways that we really find valuable. And in the same way as providing that opportunity for community involvement, it doesn't always have to just be classes and doing it. It also has to, we create civic engagement opportunities, and teaching about your civic responsibility and what is it in the community that needs to happen, and that's through communication. And in our community, it's celebrating that diversity. It's bringing together the different cultures and really like having each other learn from each other. Next.
And this is our final slide. So what is our work today? We've successfully engaged over the summer 12 high school students and 50 older adults in a variety of intergenerational activity. We started a very robust coeducational chess program that we find is very popular within the center. We partner with American Folk Art Museum here in New York, and which provided a lot of interactive programmings on site at the museum. I think it was very focused on art and just expressiveness, and the older adults and younger youth were able to participate together. We're also looking at this 3-generational Sesame Street initiative. I don't know if everybody knows Sesame Street. It's an alum program here, Sesame Street, Elmo, here in the US, where we're trying our best to see how we can best integrate the 3-generation program, where there's a younger, like a pre-K student, like a middle school, high school student, and then an older adult having conversations together. So we're seeing how we can best implement that. And then we had a successful food program over the summer, and hopefully we're able to continue that, where service model was integrated, where students would come and serve the older adults and learn about that aspect of their work, but also build connections through being in the environment, an older adult environment. And then finally, we're just continuing to work towards implementing engaging activities. We've done some during the mid-winter recess break, which happened in February, where we're able to do a mural between the older adults and youth. The youth, that's a picture of them going to see the Ant-Man movie that recently came out. So they were all together watching that. The feedback was interesting, but hey, we made it happen. No longer send them to a 3-hour movie, but at the end of the day, it was very impactful. And now we're gearing up to do our spring programming, which hopefully we'll be able to do. Cheerleaders are going to actually come in and work with the older adults on their civic engagement, things that they would like to do. And then hopefully we can implement this cosmetology intergenerational activity, where cosmetology students come in and they do, mani-pedis with the older adults, and more. And we're just trying to really bring more programming and kind of really focus on the aspect of building those connections through these variety of avenues. And next slide, and we leave you with that. Oh, these are future plans. Oh my God.
I think you said it all.
Yeah.
You got it, guys.
Thank you so much, Curly and Donald. You guys, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness you put into this, because I think this is an opportunity for you to reflect back too and see, what's working, what's not working, and what advice would you give. And we have about 5 or 6 minutes for questions. We do have one question in the chat, so I'm going to start with that, and then other people can, I guess, raise their hands through the participant, whatever reaction. The question is, were you encountering any grandparents raising grandchildren joining or inquiring about your program? Did it appear as if this was a beneficial opportunity for grandfamilies? Either Curly or Donald.
It's It's a good question. I can't say we've encountered that per se, no, right?
No, we really, no, we actually haven't had grandparents. What we did encounter, I'll just share with you, are older adults that don't have grandchildren. And then here, because we have many immigrants in our community, actually like youth that don't have grandparents present. And so it was really, especially when we were doing the middle school programming here in our shared space, it really was this connection where those older adults were able to get that understanding of what it is to be able to be like a guide to a middle school child. And then the feedback from the youth were like, because they were missing their grandparents, it was really a great connection to have them here present. So that was very touching moment that we had here through that programming.
No, great. So I think that there's an opportunity here, though, as Jennifer said, that you might want to think about how can the space be used for grandparents raising grandkids, again, as an intergenerational space where they could come and do activities together. Other questions, if you'll just raise your hand. I'm sure we have a lot of people from Spain today. You guys have some questions for Curly and Donald?
I think Anne has one.
Who's that? I don't.
I raised my hand, Nancy, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I had a question on your one slide. You had mentioned about serving adults with cognitive and physical impairments, and curious about how you navigated that with how their needs might be different, and how you changed programming, and also how you worked with that and navigating that with the kids that you serve too.
So thanks for that question. So the space does provide, not the space, the organization does provide services for individuals who have those needs. And that is an area of exploration that we need to look into tapping into. I know we have like a friendly visitors program that helps to tackle or dogs and like, I think animals go around and kind of interact with the older adults that kind of tackle different needs that they may have in terms of like, whether it's like loneliness or looking for more interactions. It's looking at those spaces and seeing how we can build intergenerational activities out of that. So we haven't done much around that space. Curly, I don't know in terms of
wait yes, you know,
right.
Well, we're talking about
Right.
The UPK students were brought down to the adult day service space, which is separate from the older adult center. So the adult day service program here is for people that have some sort of cognitive issue, so from all levels. And so the UPK students would come down and they would either do different activities that are really like for them to just really engage with each other in simple ways, like coloring, art, bingo. And so it was really looking at what can those older adults do and how is it going to stimulate toward the goal of the program, which is like the stimulation of the mind. And so what programs are available for that? And then how do the UPK students be able to contribute that? And just having that interaction with the UPK students and being able to look at them, it really, they did a little dancing sometimes as well. So it was more of a controlled environment. And so those interactions happened in that way.
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. We have like one more comment, then we're going to move on to Vincentian, and then we have time afterward.
Continue, please. No, I was saying that was pre-pandemic, and I think right now we're still looking to explore how we can have those shared spaces again. Due to, I think Curly had mentioned it earlier about some of the like restrictions of participants being in different spaces with older adults. That has been like a barrier for us in many ways. So thank you, Curly, for bringing that up. I wasn't a part of that bringing together of the UPK at that time. So I do apologize in my previous answer.
And hopefully we will, I'm not going to say that COVID is gone forever, but hopefully we're learning how to live with COVID, and we'll be able to figure out how to bring people together in spaces. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Curly and Donald. Excellent job. And we have more time. So if you have other questions, this is what I do all the time. I write it down while I'm listening because I'll forget otherwise. And after Vincentian, then we'll have an open discussion. So thank you again. So next we're moving from Queens to Pittsburgh. And we have a very exciting initiative going on with Vincentian. We have 3 speakers here, and I want to call out Matt Kaplan, who is our friend. And I think you're still in, are you still in Spain, Matt? Is he still there?
Yep,
well,
still here.
Okay, so Matt introduced me to Vincentian. I had not heard about it, and I was really excited, and I've had some conversations since then. We have 3 presenters today. Patty Embry, who's the COO and Vice President of Innovation. Patty's had 35 years of healthcare experience, and she is very strategic in developing innovative and impactful improvements in resident engagement and sustainable culture change. She's led Vincentian in reimagining the whole senior care experience through partnerships and intergenerational communities. Ann Constantino is executive strategy consultant, and she has 20 years of experience with human services organizations. And she's leading a strategic organizational vision that, this is quote, I'm not making this up. This is shared, and I love this, pushes the boundaries of traditional senior care, honoring whole person wellness, building relationship-based communities serving all generations. So I love the relationship-based communities. I think that's what we're talking about in shared spaces. And finally, we have Kenna Embry. You notice there's similar names, so I love this. Kenna is Patty's daughter. And Kenna, I think you got involved in this when you were a student living in a senior housing, right? And then she moved and she worked with Matt at Penn State, and now she's independent living life enrichment coordinator. And for 6 years, she's been developing programs, and she traveled to Spain to visit all our friends over there. And she is developing, executing intentional evidence-based intergenerational programming for Vincentian's 115 independent living residents. And she oversees something called Students in Residence, which I'm sure they will talk about. So we're very excited to have you here, Vincentian team, our intergenerational team, and take it away.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for having us today. We are very excited. Kenna and Ann and I are happy to share our intergenerational story. But quite frankly, our chapters are just starting. So, but we are very willing to learn from all of you as the experts in here. So let me just make, there we are. Okay. Hang tight. Okay. So who is Vincentian? We are a nonprofit organization located in the city of Pittsburgh. We are led by the Vincentian Sisters, or the Sisters of Kentucky. I'm sorry, the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth that are located in Kentucky. We do serve and care for people of all ages, ranging from 6 weeks old all the way up to, well, I think our oldest resident right now is a little bit over 100. And we serve a diverse population. We have campuses located all across the city, both north, south, and east of the city. And we have services ranging from long-term care, short-term care, like rehab services, personal care, and independent living. And we also service childcare, as well as we have what we call progressive service line, which is our unconventional kitchen, which is catering and does family meals. So just a little brief stint on our history. You know, our sisters started this organization back in 1924, which means we're almost at our 100th anniversary. So we've been around for a while. But we've always loved to think of our sisters as really being very proactive and responsive to the community needs, and very innovative in what they do. very short example, we brought children in childcare to this organization in 1972 when women really started to enter the workforce. And they recognized very early on that there was a need for childcare. So maybe even back then in 1972, when we didn't call it intergenerational, we already started this work. Again, like I said, we are very much in a belief that our journey started with us recognizing several years ago that we as an organization, and maybe not unlike a lot of people in our society, have a tendency to put people into silos. And our organization, as we served our community, saw that our seniors went into, a home on the hill, our children went into daycare, and so on and so on. So initially, our goal was really to start to bridge that gap between the populations that we serve. And we started bringing them into the same facility and had that multi-generational feel. And then now we're really intentional with our intergenerational programming and effort. Whoops. So with that, I'm going to introduce Kenna. Kenna's going to talk a little bit about Terrace Place, which is our independent living community.
Okay, so as my mom said it, Terrace Place is an independent living community that was built and opened in April of 2019. We have 91 units here with 100 residents and 4 undergraduate students from La Roche. The apartments are 905 square feet with in-unit laundry, private balcony and patio, 1.5 bath, and a smart technology system where the residents can sign up for events, message other residents, and control their lights as well as their thermostat from their phone. While it is independent living, we do offer a number of services such as transportation, housekeeping, daily meals delivered to their door. Prior to being built, we looked at the projected population numbers for Allegheny County, and we knew that we wanted to expand with our partnerships. So that's when we started collaborating with La Roche University. And we started the SERB program, which is the student in residence. So we have 4 undergraduates living amongst our residents in these apartments for free in exchange for service hours. So that's the students helping myself and our property manager with administrative tasks like filing things and making tour pamphlets, all the fun initiatives, as well as doing events such as book club, wine club, happy hours, some local community sustainability initiatives. We try to base it off of what we call our wellness wheel. So there's 6 different areas of wellness, some being social, financial, physical, and so on. Next slide, thank you. So we did notice a lot of positive impacts with our students and residents. So we asked ourselves, how can we take it one step farther? We do have a local child care center just a mile down the road from Terrace Place. So we started inviting them to come and do activities with our residents. Through our VCD, our Child Development Center and independent living events, we realized that not having on-campus childcare kind of created some barriers between our scale of intergenerational engagement. So yeah, now I'm going to pass it back to Patty to talk about one of our facilities that does have a childcare on site and how we've bettered that.
Thank you, Kenna. So Kenna was speaking about our independent living facility, which was on the North Hills part of the town. And this location, Marion Manor, is in the south region of our area. And again, pandemic, as you know, we all talk about things being pre and post pandemic. During the pandemic, we've always had childcare on the bottom floor of our skilled nursing facility, but it didn't have intentional spaces for these 2 populations to have programming or to actually just mingle amongst each other. So we took advantage of the time of us having to close childcare and be under the restrictions of the Department of Health regulations, which that's a little bit of our challenges, and it's a little tricky for us to do this. And we renovated those spaces. So the childcare now is in the bottom level, which it was before, but it's completely renovated so that they can be in the same building and now share intentional spaces, as you can see here on this floor. So we have really made community spaces where our residents, skilled nursing rehab residents, can be in these spaces with children, and it's very comfortable for them to have that intermingling and having different programmatic places to be. So again, though, we feel like, you know, we're hitting the mark in some spaces, but not in all of that. So we look at this was, you know, we opened this up in 2021. We have senior living here as far as our skilled nursing, but we don't have the college students in this particular building. There's no campus nearby where this happens to be located, but we do have the on-campus childcare, and we really are just starting now to understand what it means to have public spaces where people can come together and feel comfortable sharing and doing activities, and where it's inviting. So in 2019, in the city part of our campuses, Vincentian Gardens is a personal care community. This is a different regulator than the Department of Human Services. This is, I'm sorry, than the Department of Health. It is Department of Human Services. This is the first time ever in our area that we are aware of that we are going to now intermix college students, the Chatham University, in a personal care home. This was when we purchased this in 2019, right again before the pandemic. Our intention was to have this 164 licensed bed or facility to have Chatham students in this space and share and give back hours for programming with our residents. The intentions were great. The students came in and flocked in because there's a housing crisis in this area, and the rent was reduced for give back time. And then in came the giant red COVID ball and sort of put a stop to what we wanted to do. They did come into the building, but everything was more or less done virtual from that point on. But you could see how wonderful this building is. It has great attributes. There's outdoor spaces, there's views of the city, there's terraces. It's a very attractive space for us as we move forward with our plans. And we're going to be talking mostly from this point on about Vincentian Gardens. What's very unique about this space is we call this, like, we are the hub, and in the middle of the hub of our meds and eds. Pittsburgh Oakland community is very much known for the medical community, UPMC, University Medical Center, and our education, which you can see here is Carnegie Mellon University, the University of Pittsburgh. There are a lot of medical and educational programs and educational institutions here. So when you look at this now, this is our little house hunters, fun little thing if you like house hunters. You could see that we're hitting here and there on many of what we would like to do. But overall, we're looking to make sure that one of our campuses, and maybe moving forward in all of our campuses, would have senior living, some type of college representation, childcare in the building, and really planning and designing our spaces to be completely intergenerational. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Anne, who will talk for the rest of our presentation about our intention and our renovation and delivery of the new Shenley Gardens.
So this is kind of our guiding statement for our larger renovation for this campus community. And this really speaks to our commitment to deepening our wellness wheel attributes, as well as for designing for spontaneous, along with planned interactions and programs to truly connect all generations, as well as the community at large. So we're a pretty ambitious group. Go ahead, Patty. So we worked with our architectural partner, Perkins Eastman, to master plan this campus and really collaboratively developed these overarching goals for our significant renovation. These incorporate what we've learned from our previous projects that both Patty and Kenna have talked about, as well as our future vision for our organization overall. You know, as we look at the fact that we are about to turn 100 years old, there's a lot to be celebrated from our history, but what does our community and our people really need going forward, and what are the things that resonate with them, and how can we design for that? So we actually began with some infrastructure renovations about 18 months ago or so to begin to address some of the facility needs. When we purchased this building in 2019, we knew it had some HVAC issues and some other things. And so we've been kind of plodding along in the background while we've been dreaming up our bigger vision for this campus to be able to address those things that couldn't wait. And so while we were in the middle of doing all of those renovations and planning, go ahead, Patty, then this happened. So the Shenley Gardens building is on the right in the orange, and to the left is what was formerly owned by the Marriott. And last year, the University of Pittsburgh purchased that building and decided to put graduate student housing there. So the timing of this could not have been better for us as we are in the midst of our planning for this building, and to really start to look across our shared connecting patio to all of the students who can come from right next door and come into our space. And it really put all of our thoughts into overdrive for the campus. And when we were adding those Pitt students to Chatham, that it really speaks to our desire to facilitate intergenerational relationships and to have that be a protective factor against all of the risk factors for both adolescents and for the senior population around loneliness. And so when we were looking at designing for these spaces in these areas, that you can see all of the different areas that we're kind of attacking that from the house hunter plus perspective. So one of the things, is the on-campus childcare, which we are currently designing to have between 90 and 100 students who would be from infant through pre-K within this building, as well as our college students. We're keeping our Chatham University graduate students, as well as welcoming students from across the patio to come over, and hoping to build all of these community spaces that will bring those students, our residents, and our college, our kiddos in, as well as their parents and the community at large. So as we're looking through that and really trying to design these spaces with both intentional and the organic connections for those interactions to naturally occur, because what we've learned in our previous attempts at this has been needing to be able to do both, and of having that be something that can speak to each individual person for what they might want or need at any moment. Some people might prefer more of the planned activities. Some people might like some of those connections where it is happening upon somebody in the bistro and having, engaging in a crossword puzzle or something together. And so making sure that we're very intentional around creating any number of opportunities that we can imagine, and having that door wide open for those that we can't even imagine yet. So trying to be as flexible as possible in that. If you want to go ahead, Patty. So just quickly, this is kind of the most recent design for how we're looking at the building overall, where you can see that there's our garage kind of connects us and that other building. And we have a childcare drop-off area off of the garage to be able to have that as a convenience for parents. And then the first floor of the building, we are looking at taking that and building that to be entirely those community areas that were on that previous slide. So that is essentially intergenerational central and a shared community space for the whole building. Then we'll have the resident apartments up above that. We'll have our intergenerational library on the 4th floor, as well as our childcare suite on the 4th floor. So, and then we have some households up on the 5th floor that are for some higher acuity residents and flexible to potentially meet the needs for both dementia and or hospice at some point. So again, wanting to make sure that we're building flexibility in to meet the needs of our community. So this is just a collective look at kind of some of the design pieces and imagery that we're working with Perkins Eastman on. And just to give you a flavor, because sometimes when you're looking at drawings all the time of spaces, that it's good to add some color. and real people that we imagine being in there. And then just a quick piece around looking at the intentionality of the future. I mean, we joke amongst ourselves around the fact that we've kind of bumped into intergenerational practices of just kind of having an instinct that this is what feels right. And in working with Kenna and with going to the Pennsylvania Intergenerational Conference last year and getting to meet Dr. Kaplan as well as Nancy and so many other people who are doing the real research and providing those evidence-based practices of really taking our intentionality to the next level, and really trying to bring all of those pieces together for what we design in the future, and welcoming all of the feedback of the experts to be able to help us build something that hopefully makes a true impact, not only in our community, but can help in others across the country.
Well, that was terrific. Thank you all. A little clapping for everybody. You guys are really ambitious. I mean, this is really, really exciting, and it takes things to a whole nother level. And I want to open it up for questions now, but I just want to say that I'm going to be really interested in seeing, as you think about the physical structure, the psychosocial activities and partnerships, you have a lot of things going on at the same time, which can really be a model for all of us. And I think there are going to be a lot of lessons learned. Do we have questions for Vincentian, for anybody there? I'm sure we must, so bring it on.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I applaud you on your presentation and as you mentioned, Nancy, a very ambitious project. You were mentioning that most of your intergenerational activities were going to be happening on the ground floor. Do you see the older adults being integrated into the childcare center in the program rooms? Okay.
I will take that on. That one is a little bit tricky for us. Although both personal care and childcare are regulated by the Department of Human Services, childcare is a little bit more strict with who can be in that space. Once they can be in the space, but anybody that is there on a regular basis in a long-term program would have to go through many of the clearances to be able to be, let's say, you know, a rocker or have any participation on a long-term basis. We are very willing to put residents who may want to join a program like that through all the clearances. In fact, they go through a number of them already, but not all of them. But if we bring the children out into a common area with a teacher, the residents that are interacting with them do not have to have all of the clearances as if they were in that space that was secured. So it's a little bit tricky for us to get through some of those challenges, but what is really, really nice about Shenley Gardens and our DHS representatives, they are very, very willing to work with us to make this happen. One of the things that we recently did was have a conference on our site and location, and Dr. Kaplan was kind enough to come down and really help our whole organization learn a little bit more about what it means to be intergenerational. One of the things that we did was invite our Department of Health representatives to that conference so they can understand really what our intention was as we're trying to bring these communities together, because that's the biggest hurdle we have to get over.
Great. Other questions? Matt, I knew you'd have a question, Matt.
Not so much a question. I just want to say,
Kaplan, excuse me, Dr. Kaplan.
Matt, or to you. Yeah, so one thing struck me when we visited and had our walkabout, talk about around your place was the way the relationships you struck up with DHS representatives and so many people, myself included, are very nervous because they have a lot of control and they could really, you know, make it very difficult. But you folks were, I mean, everybody was so warm and on the same page and leaning in. What do we need to do? What do you suggest? So there really was a a mutual sense of cooperation, doing it together. So that kind of, got my mind a little less from an adversarial mindset and thinking, hey, these folks can really do work with us.
Yeah. Great. Other comments about this, even if you don't have a question, or are there other people who are, I don't know if anyone's trying to do the exact same thing as Vincentian, because this is big, but some of the challenges that have been experienced from both Sunnyside and Vincentian around intergenerational partnerships or scheduling, or the whole idea of sharing space. Is there anyone who's had experienced similar barriers or has some effective strategies you'd like to share? Come on, I know this is not a quiet group. I know some of you have been very effective in what you're doing. How about what's going on in our in Spain with all those people over there? Anything? Because I do have a question about the intergenerational partnerships. You just brought it up, Matt, in terms of, it's challenging to get other organizations to buy into this. Are there any tips from either Vincentian or Sunnyside on, what's a message you send out there to get people engaged with you? Because I think there are a lot of barriers, and there may be people who look at this and saying, well, it's nice, but this is a lot of work. I mean, what kind of messages do you give people to get them involved?
Thank you, Nancy. I think that's a great question. And I guess that has to go back to why did I get involved, right? Why did Curly get involved? And I think you need a spearheader, and UNH was the spearheader for us, and getting us to be comfortable with understanding that we would be supported through these challenges every step of the way. That despite these challenges coming, having a champion of this work and really knowing exactly what it takes to implement these programs was very important. Even with the challenges, the red tape, the barriers when it came to, Department of Health saying kids can't be around the older adults, like there was a lot of barriers, and it's easy to say, hey, I can't do this, right? But you got to want to do it. And I think part of my personality was being outside of my day-to-day space into being another space that was just about intergen. And I didn't have to think about the programs I was having to run that afternoon or the emails I had needed to respond to. I was in a separate space. Therefore, I gave the time in my availability to fully grasp what was being, what I was learning about, or the initiatives that was being brought to my attention. And I think that is so important, is to get individuals about their day-to-day space and provide their own safe space to learn about this, to understand this type of work, so that they can either be inspired to integrate or to come with their issues and their impossibilities, but at that same time, learn from others who are interested in the work and how to get it done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the training is really critical. And I don't know if Vincentian, if you're doing, training of all your staff at this point, and it sounds like Donald and Curly, and I imagine your other staff members are involved too. But this is hard. And, we always talk about the word intentionality. You need staff who want to do this, who will enjoy working with different ages, and who are really intentional about building those relationships, because it's not business as usual. And so if you don't have that training and you just dump the same people in, it's not going to be nearly as successful. So Vincentian, do you have some, what have you done in terms of training of staff and also with other partners?
I'll let Patty go in a second. But I wanted to build on.
Mom. You can say Mom.
Yeah. I try not to, but in work settings. But yeah, building off what Donald said in regards to partnerships, I agree with everything, as well as building off the connections that you already have and turning them into partnerships. For me, I joined the Vincentian team with a lot of academia research behind me, and they're more practical. So whenever we got together and I started working here, I think it changed the way some of our partnerships are, and as far as like making new connections.
That was very true, Kenna. Nancy, to answer your question, I would honestly tell you that, like, I think we're so very early on in the whole training aspect. I think as a total organization, we have, you know, leadership meetings and managers meetings, and we try to bring up the topic and talk about that being our goals and our strategy. We're also looking as a team, we're building out our next year's strategic plan. So we're looking, where do we put this in our values? Where do we put this? Is it our vision statement? Like, we're really trying to figure out how can we, you know, weave it into our culture where it becomes just a natural part of what we do in our organization. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is at Shenley Gardens, you know, our true big renovation is not scheduled to start here until summer, maybe late summer. But we are already trying to tackle some of the training aspects of really recognizing that this is going to be this is a different building from what it's going to be today to what we see it being in the future. So there's a constant reminder with the staff, like the service has to be elevated. The mindset has to be different. Like, it has to be inclusive. You have to see people as a whole. Like so we're really trying to have those conversations. In fact, today our culinary team is literally up at our Engagement Institute getting one of their very first like hands-on training about what this all means to them. So, and we won't even open that for another year. So we're trying to get ahead of it. It doesn't mean we'll have it all. I hope we have it all ready to go, but I'm not sure, you know, we're learning. Anne, do you have anything to add?
I would say, just in terms of partnerships, Patty makes fun of me sometimes because I'll just stalk people and look for opportunities where I feel like there might be a match and try to develop something. So and maybe it's Pollyannish of me, but I believe that intergenerational shouldn't have to be a hard sell. I think that people at a human level like get the intrinsic need for this when you start to see and experience the alternative. And so for us, that what we're in the process, and one of our challenges is then translating that into actual like dollars on the table and funding for all of our ambitious dreams overall. So that's kind of our current situation and rub, but that doesn't mean that we're losing hope and that we won't continue to just be very ambitious with trying to get the right people at the table with us.
And I always function with this idea of strategic opportunism. So wherever, you know, it's not every opportunity, but think through those. But you mentioned culture change. And I know when I talked to Curly and Donald, you were talking about the need to really, this isn't about programs. And it's not just about space. And I'm going to get to Mariana right after this, but just about culture change. What have you seen, or what do you see some of the barriers to changing the culture of pretty siloed services within a building to an integrated approach to engagement? Either Curly or Donald.
No, thank you, Nancy. And Curly, you can jump in whenever. So what we're finding in terms of this cultural shift is it's really the key staff aspect. And when you're like you said, individuals are dealing in different silos and they're doing their day-to-day, and it's almost like you're asking them to do more, right? Which you are, right? You are, right? But and that comes with its own context, that comes with its own approach. So what we had to do is almost do a personal ask. It's really going to someone who you confide in within your organization and who supported you in the past and saying, hey, you know, I think you would be the right person to help support with that. And we've got some success. There's an individual who does our enrichment and engagement programs here at Sunnyside Community Services for our high school programs. His name is Fabian, and I just asked him and he was like, yeah, sure. So no matter how many email blasts I could have done to the whole team asking, you know, hey, join this endeavor. When I went personally to him and sat down with him over some coffee and talked about the work and the challenges and whatever have you, he was on board. So I think although it still poses a challenge, the cultural aspect is to really personalize what we're trying to do for every single individual to understand how they can support this work and inspire them to be a part of this work. And that's where we're at currently. And also it's a top-down approach. And when I say top down, if Judy, who's on this call, thank you, Judy, is in it and is always, vocalizing the importance of this work, it resonates with people. We have Siobhan here, who's been tremendous help in keeping us focused and understanding exactly what it is that we're trying to do and the why, putting the why behind the work. It's so important. So having some leaders in the agency also vocalize the work and be a part of the work has benefited me, and I know Curly as well, but also has shown other staff members within the organization that this work is coming and this work is most likely here to stay. So you either jump on or get run over. So that it's growing. We've done so much within a year. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, you have. And the leadership piece is very important. You need to have your key administrators on board. So Judy and Siobhan, I'm glad you are on board, because you can have a great program and great activities, but if the mission of the organization isn't aligned with what you're doing, then it's only going to be small. Mariano, I knew you would raise your hand. My friend Mariano. Where are you? There you are. Hello.
Yeah. How not? I mean, after talking about Spain a couple of times, it's impossible. Thank you, Nancy. And thanks to the presenters. Matt Kaplan and I attended a month ago a national conference in Glasgow on intergenerational practices. And we were invited to talk about quality standards. So the question was, okay, we don't just need to do more, to do it better. And I would like to know whether any of the presenters have spent time thinking around quality standards in the work they do. And I would be delighted to hear what they have to say. Thank you very much for this terrific session.
It's also like, what is a quality standard? I think, for Vincentian and community and Sunnyside, is it the same? I know Mariano and Matt are working on a whole set of standards, which I'm sure they're going to share at some point. But maybe, I don't know whether there are certain things that you're abiding by or certain standards that you, either one of you, are trying to reach.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting idea and concept. Our industry is measured on quality standards already. We have to meet certain clinical quality standards, and we're rated based on star ratings, and we're measured on certain, in other words, the state or the regulators or centers of Medicare really identify our quality standards as far as care delivery. This is not part of that, but it would be very interesting if we could move some of this into that rating, because that is actually like the experiential part of what we want to have happen, and how much more impactful that would actually be than sometimes getting a very hardcore quality measure that doesn't really tell you that somebody had the best experience in their lifetime in a nursing home. So, I mean, that is really an interesting concept. I know I didn't answer your question, because it really, our mindset is a little bit different. But I think it's something that would really open our minds to think, is there something that we could be looking and to measure, or to understand a baseline and see what we're doing to see how it would impact somebody's quality of life?
Yeah, and I think there's this opportunity to look at accreditation associations and places that are overseeing a lot of, whether it's aging or early childhood, and saying, is there some way we can put an intergenerational component
Right.
in there. I was talking to people at National Association of Early Childhood Education, whatever, NAUIC, and they were saying for accreditation, they have tons of standards, but there's nothing about intergenerational. It's about community partnerships, but not community partnerships with aging organizations. And so one of the things they might want to start doing is thinking about how do they pilot this, see that it really is important, and then infuse it into the standards. So it might be something, that other organizations can do. I know, Donald Curley, do you want to add anything about some of the standards that you're thinking about or that you have to abide by?
Sure. Dealing with both of the separate populations, there are standards. And as we get close, as we do our intergenerational work, based off our communication with our partners and, United Neighborhood Houses and doing this work, we are starting to understand that there are things that should be done when this work is implemented. You have the go-to aspects of inclusivity, respect, communication, collaboration, safety. Right. And then, you do all that. And then, you hear out of nowhere, wait, what about evaluation? Right? Like, how do you know this work really is meaningful, impactful? Like, when is that going to kick in? So for us, we find that as, it's being built, right? It's almost like, I heard a colleague say earlier today, you're in the plane while you're building it, right? You're flying it while you're building. So at the end of the day, that's the feeling. But with the partnered organization, I strongly feel that we're getting closer and closer every day to kind of really showing how this work needs to be implemented. And it's flexible enough for individuals in varying situations. So I'll stop there. I just see
I'd just like to add, that there are standards for each individual, like was mentioned. There are standards for the Older Adult Center. There's standards from the Department of Education. It's being able to meet in the middle and being able to see what those similarities are and how do we get there. And so that was a challenge. That really, it's an ongoing challenge. Speaking about challenges, it's an ongoing challenge. And it's what Donald said. It's like evaluating that and being able to come up with creative ways to meet those standards and meet those obligations. And I think that just working together as an intergenerational program really has led. I'm not going to speak for you, Donald, but really it's led for us to come together in a way that we would not otherwise do so in creating this shared space.
No, that's great. And I think Mariano's question is that we are looking at, are there intergenerational standards? So those other standards. So how can people draw from those other standards and look at, as you're saying, in the middle, where is there a mutually beneficial, high quality program that's meeting multiple needs? So it's perfect, Terry. You're a perfect follow-up to this since you're honchoing a lot of the intergenerational work at United Neighborhood Houses. So do you have a comment or a question? Terry, where are you? I see his hand.
You're muted, Terry. I don't know.
Oh. Are you muted? And where's
Terry
your face?
also mentioned that they
There we go. I just unmuted. Sorry. I'm trying to figure this out since I always do this on my computer, and now because we don't have any internet in this area, I'm calling on the phone. So I apologize for you not being able to see me. One of the things I was going to share is that I think part of this idea of creating standards, which I totally agree with, also is tied back to what are the values that are underpinning what we're trying to do. And I'm sorry for the background noise. UNH has taken a very kind of an approach that is informing a set of values that we're working with our partners. And one of the underlying approaches, which Matt I've talked a lot with Matt about, is how to build intergenerational programming that is really built on the strength and assets of both age groups. And what are the values underscoring that would inform that? So for instance, we're developing with our sites what we call kind of value cards that will help older people and younger people who are working together to think about what they're co-creating. We use a co-creation model. And so, for instance, the value cards ask questions such as, Are you building on the strengths and assets or interests of both age groups? And another question is, does this work? Are you empowering both older and younger people? What does that look like? Because one of the things we often see is that sometimes if the intergenerational program, if one of the goals is to really build strong relationships, you want both age groups to really fully bring themselves to the work, not to have staff telling people what the work should look like and what the relationship should look like.
Right.
The third area is focus on creating connections. This is, you can see how this is all related. And the fourth area is the term bidirectional, which is a little wonky term, but and so I do think some of this question of standards is kind of loops back to the values and principles that an intergenerational program is working from. So that's all I wanted to share.
You know, and I think that's totally aligned with what you know, Matt and Mariano are trying to look at too, and developing some standards. So thank you, both Terry and Mariano. We have probably a couple minutes. Are there other questions or other comments, other experiences that people have had that they'd like to share, or other challenges you'd like to share? Let's get one more question. Anyone? Terry, your high end is still up, but I think that's from before, right?
The phone interface of Zoom is not nearly as useful as the
right. Well then, if there's no, I just hope that we also, I think what's interesting about this session, and I really appreciate what everyone's done, is I think we really need to look at, are there certain characteristics when you involve high school students or college students with older adults? And that's a whole nother variable. You know, we have we've done a lot of work with preschoolers and early childhood, and there's some with school age. And I think we're just starting to, you know, delve a little deeper about what are the specific challenges and opportunities with college students and with high school students. And if we're really, like in Sunnyside, you have everyone there. And Vincentian, I don't know if you're going to be involving youth younger than college students, but I think this whole idea of creating a welcoming environment for everyone and understanding what motivates people to get involved, and how do you incentivize people to get involved, and how do you create activities that are appropriate for different age groups. So
Nancy, I'll just jump in. We were on a call a couple of weeks ago, and someone was sharing that their number one incentive for high school students is that she would promise them letters of recommendation if they participated in her intergenerational program. And she said, and the parents loved it too, because that's like, everyone's looking for letters of recommendation. So
I mean, you know, it's the internal motivation and then the external, you know, incentives. But I think all these are things that we need to think about. Sherry, do you want to close it up? I just want to say thank you to the presenters for everybody. I thought this was a really, really interesting discussion. And I love these meetings because I think we learn so much, and we hear about programs that we may not have known about. I don't know how many of you knew about Vincentian and Sunnyside, but they're really wonderful programs. And as we continue meeting, thanks to Eisner, we really hope that there'll be more and more information, and that this really will become a true intergenerational shared site network. So Sherry, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I just will add with a couple things. Again, just echo Nancy. Thank you to our presenters and for everyone who attended. And thank you to Nancy for leading this meeting and coordinating it as she has been doing. Our next meeting will be in person at our conference. Can't help, you know, plug the conference again, but we really are interested in feedback and input. So if there's topics you'd like to learn more about, if there's programs or program types that you'd be interested in learning more about, research you'd be interested in learning more about, please, like, you know, put something in the chat before you leave today if there's something at the top of your mind, or definitely contact Nancy or I. We really want these to be, our goal is for these to be useful sessions that people leave learning something new with some inspiration, some great ideas. So we want them to be useful to you. So we really would appreciate that sort of input. We've sent a couple surveys out. I'm sure we're going to send a couple more to you again that you'll see to give that feedback, but we really do take that input really seriously in what we're doing. Stay tuned for the first issue of the of our quarterly newsletter, which again will also be soliciting input and feedback and making sure that that information is useful as well as keeping an eye out for Global Intergenerational Week later this month. And just thank you again for joining us. And we look forward to either seeing you in person at the conference or seeing you again virtually soon.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.